My name is Anna Lindberg, and I'm an artist from Sweden originally. I first came to Maui in 2016, and I've been off and on island since then, but I moved here 2.5 years ago, and it's my home. And it was weird when I came here first time, as the plane descended, I felt in my heart home, and that's how I felt ever since. Working as an artist professionally for about 20 years, the biggest source of inspiration for me has been the divine feminine in different forms. I'm a complete research nerd, and I've also studied religious history at a postgraduate level at the University of Stockholm because I was so fascinated with the myths of the goddesses and the story that we're so seldom told, which is the female part of history, her story, where is her story? I wanted to depict that in my art and show it. And so when I learned about the theme here, the voice of the ancestors, that was very enticing to me because I already had started feeling the pull of the divine feminine on Maui and the Hawaiian goddesses. And of course, my process is always to research. In this show, I'm showing 2 sculptures that are crocheted. So they're textile sculptures. In my earlier work, I've worked with sculptures, I've worked with collages, paintings, and lino cuts. I've been very fascinated with patterns from different cultures. In my artwork, I often do a lot of research regarding that too, so that when I paint goddesses, I always use attributes that are theirs, and I use patterns that are from their culture. It's important to me to be true to them and their stories, because there's always, the thing about my art is there's always a reason behind everything. I don't just crochet a figure and then slap something on there because it looks neat. There's a reason why I choose everything I choose to put on them. And also in my painting, that's very much the same thing. When I started thinking about making artwork here and goddess artwork here, I came across the term of akua. It's kind of a hard to grasp concept for many Westerners because we're used to God being above and people being below. And Hawaiian religion is a very, very nature-based religion, which means that akua can mean a lot of things. It can be God, it can be goddess, it can be spirit. And what really tells you if it's akua or not is the amount of mana that somebody has. And mana is sometimes explained as energy, which is not quite right, because energy can be used for good or bad. Mana can only be used for good. So it's the power to influence for good. And everybody can have it. A rock can have it. A sheaf can have it. But depending on how much you have, it will make you akua. So I wanted to depict 2 of the most ancient akuas, which is moon goddess Hina and the goddess of abundant nature, which is Haumea. She's also the goddess of childbirth, and it's said that she taught human women how to give birth naturally. Before that, they always had to cut the belly open, which was a gruesome process, but she taught them how to do it the natural way and also easing the process for them. Haumea is strongly associated with the earth. This is another thing about divinity in Hawaii. It's very nature-based. There are divine beings that are strongly associated with, for example, the moon, earth. We have Laka, that's the forest, and Hula. We have rainbow goddess. But Haumea is the earth. and all the living things, the edible things, the plants. She's all about bounty, abundance. And so in this sculpture, I really wanted to depict the abundant nature of Maui. And it was important to me that the flowers I chose are Hawaiian flowers, the ones that I see in our garden. And like the ginger blossoms and hibiscus flowers. And being an earth goddess, Haumea is also associated with Papa, who is the other earth goddess. Some people say they're the same, or the aspect of the same. Some people say they are not. They are two separate ones. And this is something that you come across a lot when studying Hawaiian mythology, because Hina too has a lot of different sides to her. I'll come back to that. But Haumea has a lot of different aspects to her. She can also get pissed off, and then she can be horrendous. She can withhold all of the abundance that she gives so freely. And people will starve, and there will be famine, and there will be nothing growing. So it's important to appreciate all of these gifts we are given. And that's what I wanted to show in the sculpture. I wanted her to hold, and I also wanted her to show, look, here are all the offerings I'm giving you every day. Do you see them? And Haumea is really the goddess of multiplying things, of making things grow, and of fertility and abundance. So, but yeah, like I said, it's both and, which is very often the case with goddesses. We have in the Christian culture, of course, we have God who is only good, and then the devil. But in most goddess religions, it's usually goddess is both. She has the dark side and the light side. And when she's appeased and happy, she's a delight. And when she's not, you better stay away or try to appease her. So there's a duality of it that I like, because I think people are very seldom only good. And the same thing is true for Hina. Now, Hina is one of the oldest deities on Hawaii. She's in a bunch of different myths. In this particular one that I've decided to depict, she's the mother of Maui, the demigod. But she's in other myths, she's his wife, or, so there are different sides of her. She doesn't always play the mother. But she is for sure the embodiment of feminine power and feminine wisdom. And her part of nature is the moon. So for different reasons that I don't quite know, the sun was never that important to the Hawaiians, but the moon was. The moon was very important. For this story, her name is Hina, stands for gray or silver, sort of like the moonlight. Mahina is the name of the moon. So I wanted her to have a little moon. And she is, most of all, she's the goddess of kapa making. So that was her prime attribute. She would make the finest kapa in all of Hawaii. And so kapa is sort of a paper-like cloth that you get from pounding bark of the mulberry tree. And this is actual kapa cloth. And it was told that she made the most beautiful white kapa cloth of all. But she was disturbed in her creativity because the days weren't long enough. The sun went too fast. So in one of the myths, her son Maui, who loved his mother Hina very much, decided to capture the sun and snare him and entice him into having the days go longer, which he did. It's a whole story. But he did it so that his mom could be creative, which I, who was a single mom for a long time and working artist, find very enticing. He did that for his mother. He wanted her to be able to create. And so they had a very special relationship. She is also the goddess of motherhood, and the moon, of course, kapa making, and the ocean, the tides of the ocean is important. Also the lehua blossom that I tried to replicate with the sort of sticky red lei, that's not only for Hina, also Pele is very much, and also Laka with that particular flower. All of these patterns I've researched. I didn't pound them in. I actually painted them. They would have, if they were made traditionally, they would have been pounded into the kapa, but that wasn't available to me. So that's what I did. And since Hina is feminine power portrayed, and she's very much the goddess of motherhood, I wanted to show her as a mother. And I thought that the story of Maui capturing the sun for her to make her able to perform her creativity was so sweet. Of course, he's not old enough to do that here yet, but it was something very nice about the bond between the two of them. And yes, I don't think that I've seen Maui portrayed as a baby either very often, but that's how it came to me in this piece. Feminine power, motherhood, creativity, and a moon. Very much moon. And here we have nature, abundance, earth. Two of the oldest akua. Like I said, I'm a meticulous researcher. I love to know about the things I make. That it doesn't matter if I make a sculpture, I make a collage, or I make a painting. It's very important to me to know what I'm doing. And I felt, as in my process of this ancestry, it felt so important to me to not overstep my boundaries, seeing as I'm not, in fact, a Hawaiian native. And still, I'm here talking about ancestors, you know? But I feel like when I start working with them, we had a conversation here with the group of artists that was going to do this, and we talked about asking permission. Should we ask permission from the ancestors in our process of creating this? And I loved the question, even, that it was asked. And then, of course, I asked it. So my process is not only the crafty part of how in the world am I going to make this leg the right size, which is a long process of trial and error. It's back and forth, back and forth, back and forth, because I want it to be somewhat proportional. And that's not it doesn't happen like that, for sure. But also to be in communication with the divinity that I'm portraying. I started making textile goddesses in 2020, the year of the COVID. Before that, I had my biggest exhibition yet in Sweden. It was a big art hall. It was only collages. And I had worked really hard for a year to make that happen. And and it was sort of weird because I just managed to have that exhibition. And then in March, COVID came to Sweden and everything was shut off. And I was there sitting, you know, in my studio, not being allowed to go anywhere, thinking, okay, so what's next? And I just felt this urge to make something with my hands. I didn't want to cut or glue or do it. I wanted to make something soft and tactile. And at the same time, I was studying antique clay sculptures of goddesses. So they were not at all proportional women bodies. I just wanted to see if I could look at because there are so many goddess sculptures, ancient goddess sculptures in clay, in different, they're almost like anarchistic shapes. They're like big butts or, like head, everything's just very freely created and in my opinion, beautiful. And I wanted to see if I could translate that into textile, into crocheting, into knitting. So I made a whole series of goddesses, just in all, just weird shapes and sizes and techniques. And then I made my first one that actually looked human, was a big one in denim fabric that I ripped, and then I crocheted the denim fabric. And she was almost life-size, and it was the goddess Fesonia, which is the goddess of the weary, because I felt like we all were during COVID and we needed rest. And so I made her, and I even knitted some red socks for her in the end, and a little blanket so that she would be comfortable. And so that's sort of what got me into the idea of it's sort of funny to work with these materials and try to make them proportional, because it was weird to me after a while when I worked with the jean goddess that she almost looked like she was breathing. It's something with the textile and the softness of it that just sort of opens your heart a little. You go a little when you see them, yeah, I liked the process of that. And of course, since I always research everything I do, I liked that I could translate my knowledge of her story and goddess myth and religion into something three-dimensional that was a little different, that I necessarily hadn't seen before, maybe, quite in that way anyway. So yeah. So my process really, and the choice of everything, it's very intuitive, I think. And sometimes I feel like it's a dialogue with the goddess I'm creating, that this is how it's supposed to be. Yeah, I'm very proud and thrilled to be part of this exhibition. I think it's beautiful from what I've seen, and I love the theme. And I already have little nudges from other goddesses whispering in my ear that they want to have their stories told and made into sculpture. So I have more ideas. So it's been a interesting process for me, this journey of making art for this exhibition, and I'm super pleased and happy to get to be here.